Wow.
World-renowned medium Tyler Henry is giving the gift of closure and healing to those who've lost loved ones in his new reality series.
It's called Life After Death with Tyler Henry. Please welcome our friend Tyler back to the show. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be back.
This looks like a whole different sort of show you've been doing. What is going on with your mom that we saw right there in the clip?
So a few years ago, we came to this crazy discovery that the people I thought were my grandparents actually weren't, and that indeed my mom had actually been stolen as a baby.
What?
By a woman who ended up committing 2 homicides and going to prison for over 30 years. So only recently did we discover that the people I thought were my biological family weren't. And this show was really about a search for identity, trying to figure out how this happened and why.
So your mom was never told she was adopted.
That's right.
She goes on Ancestry.com.
So the crazy thing was my mom had grown up with this woman until she was around 13 or 14, and then this woman committed these murders. But my mom is now in her 50s, and through an ancestry DNA test discovered that their lineage didn't add up, that there was some missing factor. So meanwhile, my mom had an entire biological family that was looking for her their whole lives. And my biological grandmother died before she ever got the chance to reunite with my mom. So it was a pretty intense story.
And so, I mean, your work as a medium, I think that the natural inclination is that, okay, so now, Tyler, you've been able to help your mom with some closure.
Sure.
But you talk about in the clip that it's not necessarily that easy. What happened?
It's one of those tricky things where one of the big reasons why I never want to know where I'm going or who I'm reading, it's in part because I don't want to be biased by any kind of logical things that I happen to know. But when we're talking about family, it's so personal, I had implicit bias. And so it made it very difficult to connect intuitively about people I knew so much about.
I'm being silly, but was there a moment where your mom's like, Tyler, I need you now. Like, give me more. Go back.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Like, kick it in.
Well, there had been times as a child growing up when I would look at my mom and I would say, are you sure Stella is your mom? It just doesn't feel like she's your mom. You're such a good mother. Stella was such a bad mother. It just doesn't connect. And then they looked so much alike, ironically, that my mom never thought that it could have been possible.
But even as a kid, you would say that.
Even as a kid, yes. So there was some intuitive inkling, but when they resemble each other, it's hard to think that these two people might not be biologically related.
Well, you kind of rose to fame, really, reading celebrities, you know, on another show. And in this show, it's a totally different take. You're dealing with, and I hate to say like real people, but you're dealing with people who just need some help and may not be notable, you know, or celebrities. What's the biggest difference you've noticed in the process?
You know, with celebrities, there's a lot of logistics there. You've got their publicists, and you know, things often would come through in a Hollywood medium that they would then need edited out because it was too personal or too revealing. And I find that all these people who have written in, over 300,000 people after Hollywood medium aired,
300,000?
readings. Yes, and so this show for me is my kind of answer to that. I traveled the country, I surprised everyday people with readings. I consider myself an everyday person, and it was really so nice to do a project where you had these people who needed this experience, they got the experience, and it was just meaningful.
Your process, Scott and I always talk about it. I mean, the way you're scribbling and you're sweating, I mean, this has to be so taxing
like
on you.
Like a workout.
Describe your process and kind of what happens to you.
So scribbling is really my way of kind of turning on so that when I'm not working, I can just go about my day-to-day life and have some sense of normalcy. And scribbling really just started in high school. I was talking to a girlfriend on the phone, just doodling as you do when you're on the phone. And I started noticing that as I would kind of scribble, I started kind of daydreaming really strongly. And as I call my ability kind of, it's a culmination of active daydreams. So when I sit and do a reading, I'm not seeing dead people walking around. I'm just kind of immersing myself in this kind of imagination-like state. And from that comes really detailed, specific information.
When we had you on the first time, I think you were 19.
Yes.
Now that you're older, like, what if you have some cocktails? Like, does it come flooding in?
You
or?
know what? That's the thing. I've never been drunk. I have never been
We should
drunk.
do that
for
and see what happens.
You know,
or like
I had one sip of champagne, a sip of champagne in Australia. Like, sure. But no, that was it. That was the closest to my experience of getting drunk. So hey, saving something for my 30s.
Good.
Okay. That would be a whole other reality TV
we
show.
got shows like this.
We've got shots right now for you, Tyler. Don't go anywhere.
With some readings coming up.
Yeah.
Your new book, here's the title,
Yes.
Here and Hereafter. What's the big premise of this, the one big takeaway?
In writing Here and Hereafter, I wanted to kind of focus on the premise of if the departed could do it over again, what would they do differently? So often when people come to me for reading, their number one thing is they have regret. Things went unsaid, things went undone, and they want to know how to resolve that. So this book is really just kind of sharing with people what you can do in the here and the now to kind of prevent that future regret.
Tyler, you're awesome.
The man.
Thanks for coming
The
by
man.
again.
Thank you.
Life After Death with Tyler Henry, streaming now on Netflix, and his book, Here and Hereafter, available right now.
It's always good to see you, man.
Yes.
Thank you both.
When it comes to dating, though, how soon is too soon to respond to a text? I still don't know. It's okay. Is it okay to date someone who slid into your DMs?
Yes.
We're finding out after this.
Why am I saying yes?
You're right. When's the last time you slid into a DM?